Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So on today, what we're going to do is part 2 of the Qubes setup. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to start with nothing and install Qubes, and then just walk through a couple of initial setup and configuration items. And then what that's going to do is get us ready for the future work where we're going to set everything up, learn how to do everything, and etc. So today we're doing a couple more different tests. I don't know what happened, but somewhere in software upgrades, Linux just keeps getting better. I'm now running 2 different web cameras off the old laptop, both recording in HD onto an HD video. So we'll see how this works out. If it's stuttery, whatever, then I'll fix it later and cut back down a little bit. But we're gonna go ahead and give this a try. I'm actually using the main camera I'm looking at today is actually the Logitech C650, or is it, I don't know, whatever the Logitech 615 is. I talked about in my video yesterday. So I have that one up here, and the reason is the C22 is still a little bit better, and I could not get a good clean image on the 615 pointed at a computer monitor. But the 922 or the 920 does do a good job pointing at a monitor. So since we are working on an install today, then I have to be pointing a camera at the monitor because I can't exactly record the screen as I'm building the operating system on it. So hopefully it doesn't look too bad. We're going to make some adjustments as we need to make some adjustments. But what we're going to do is we are going to install Qubes. So I'm recording this on the laptop because I'm going to be running the actual installation on the big computer. Of course, when I built this computer, I built it with an IC dock to run the main operating system, which will allow me to swap out the operating systems live. Now, there is an on-off switch on each of the hard drive docks, so I can just turn off the switch on the internal drive, and then it'll be perfectly fine. So what we're going to do is I'm going to install Qubes on this. Hopefully it's not super slow. This drive is over a decade old. It's an 80 gigabyte Western Digital drive. A friend of mine had it laying around and just said, hey, get rid of this thing and, format it, whatever else. So there's, I think, I don't know, some old operating system on here that we're just going to overwrite it. So what I'm going to do is plug this guy into the IC dock, turn off the other drive, and then I have already downloaded Qubes, and I've installed, or I've wrote the ISO image onto that drive that I just dropped on the floor. And what we're going to do is boot up the computer and walk through all of the setups. So, as I said in the last video, Qubes is quite a large file. So if you come over here and download it, the latest version is 3.2. And this ends up being a file that is like about 4 gigabytes. So I end up grabbing, here it is. So yeah, it's 4.2 gigabytes. So you will need a little bit larger USB drive. That's why I put it on this one, which is an 8 gig versus the one I usually put these on is a 4 gig. So on Linux Mint, I just use the USB writer, and this is the one that I always do. Just hit this guy here, you select your distro, select the input drive, and then it's ready to go. So I already did that part. So we are pretty much set to go. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure my main operating system is turned off. Just hit the off button. I'm going to just plug this right into my IC dock. Now, what I found on this my computer here, and each computer is probably going to be a little different, that I actually have to have the IC dock turned on, otherwise the computer will disable the SATA port at the start. So this computer has 6 SATA ports. It just kind of disables the things it doesn't need. So I'm going to plug my my main drive there into my front USB 3 port, and I'm going to make sure that my IC dock station for the large hard disk is turned on, and then I'm going to turn on the computer, and I'm going to mash at the F12 key until I get a boot menu. Okay, so I have a boot menu, and let me see if I can maybe I have a boot menu. I think I had something incorrect there. Let me go ahead and try that again. Hey, we have a boot menu. All right. So this one here that I have selected is the hard drive. This is the Qubes install for my other system. This is an Ubuntu. What I need here is the UEFI USB hard drive. If I go to this Lexar USB flash drive, this would load it in the original BIOS, but I found that at least this distro I have will not boot into that. So I'm going to boot here. And this is going to boot up the Qubes installer. So here, well, I was going to walk through that menu, but it loaded up pretty quick. The first option there was just to install Qubes. So we're going to go ahead and let that go. I pushed the escape key to abort a disk verification. If I get goofiness, then maybe the disk is messed up. But so here we are loading up the installer. It'll boot itself into a graphical installer on this version of Qubes. Now I tried to run this on a VirtualBox, and it gave me some really messed up settings. So it does give me my default English and English United States. I do have a mouse available, and down at the bottom is a option there that will say continue. Let me move my camera a little bit there. Okay, let me just do that. And you still can't see what's on the bottom of the screen down there. Yay, there it is. See it down there? It says continue. We're going to go ahead and push the continue button. All right. So now what we need to do is select our various options. So our keyboard's set up, our time and date is set up, our language is set up, our software source is the local installation media. We're setting up Qubes OS with XFCE, and then over here we have our installation destination, which it says automatic partitioning is set up. We do need to work on that, so we're going to click on this guy here, and we're going to select the disk, and what we should have to do here is clear off some disk space. Maybe it's gonna go for it all the way already. It's possibly because this thing is set up as a it was a Windows computer. So now we're gonna enter a encryption key for the drive. So Qubes by default will encrypt the drive. Okay, and then of course we have to do that twice. Going to save the passphrase. Okay, so what it says here is it's telling us that it requires 30 gigabytes of space. There is 0 free space available, so we're going to hit the button here to reclaim space. And what I'm actually going to do is just push delete all. It says delete, and push the reclaim space button here. So now it is set to go, and I'm going to hit my begin installation button. So now what we're going to do, root account is disabled. So Qubes does this by default. They have a very nice article explaining why they do that. Basically, it is so that, you know, it's just because of the way the security is set up. It really doesn't matter. And so you really never need to enter a root password. We do want to enter a user here, so we'll go ahead and do that. It is set to automatically require a default user. It doesn't like that. I just used something quite easy there. So since it is weak, we are going to have to hit done twice. All right, now don't use a weak password if you are using this. I'm just setting this machine up as going to be just to show you guys how to get everything set up. You can see that our files are installing. Everything seems to be working. So what I'm going to do right now, actually, I'm going to work on lightening the screen. I had darkened the screen up in hopes that that might actually fix the problem that I had on the other camera, but ended up not being a good solution either way. So I'm actually going to brighten the screen up a little bit. It's even hard for me to read. Looks like to the camera it doesn't really matter one way or the other, but okay, let's leave that. That'll go away. So the installation here might take up to 5 or 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and we're going to come back as soon as this initial screen here is done. Our installation is complete. That took about 20 minutes. You'll see it gets to this screen here. It says complete down here, and there is the reboot button here. And then what I'm actually going to do is, it says terminated up here in the upper corner. It's just off screen. Now I can see that the system restarted itself, so now I'm going to pull out the USB port. Now, where I may run into a little issue is I'm not sure if this was reset to the actual cubes that I have. In fact, it looks like it was, or if this might get to it. So I'm going to experiment first. I'm going to try this because I was pretty sure I installed that as all caps. So it might have actually killed my quote-unquote cubes install from my other drive that I'm used to working on. If that is the case, I'll go ahead and fix that later. So I'm going to see what this does. Okay, so that seems to be working. So I'm going to have to test out if my other drive ends up being broken later. So now everything seems to be working just great. I'm going to enter my disk password. And then you'll see a little status bar going up. This will take about a minute or so to finish loading up. And then it's going to go ahead and ask us for our next level of password. Okay. So actually what I'm going to have to do then when I'm done here is make sure that the other cubes install I have, which is kind of on this little drive here, still works. This is actually what I'm using for the production work that I actually built the original one for. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. And who knows, if this works as well as it may, then I might just move everything over to this one if it works better. The downside is I can't plug this drive as easily into my laptop here. So when you first get onto Qubes, it's actually going to have us do a configuration. So up here, well, down here in the little yellow part, it says please complete the items marked with this icon before going to the next step. And actually, I just totally covered the button on the next step. I forgot this screen was coming. So you can see we have a finish configuration button, but I have to click on the cubes up here. And then we're going to have some systems. So create default system cubes. I'd recommend you're doing this, especially if you're just starting out and playing with this. So this first option here, what this is going to do, let me bump this up just a little bit for a second, is it's going to create your default configurations that will isolate your networks, isolate a Tor network, and isolate a firewall. And then we're going to create default application cubes, which are personal, work, untrusted, and vault. And then we're going to create the Unix gateway, which is for anonymous browsing through the Tor network. And so, let's see, root applications, traffic and updates through Tor network, which is experimental. Do not configure anything for advanced users. We're just going to go ahead and keep these three defaults working fine. We're going to click on the done, and you'll see that it's doing a configuration. Now this will have Debian 8 and Fedora 23 on here. If you actually go and look at the online documentation, they'll actually give you very clear instructions on how to update to the latest. And I'll actually tell you how to do that, and we'll start the step. But last time I did that on my other one, I actually took overnight to finish it, because it does take a while to upgrade Debian 8 to Debian 9. I did it simply because there were a few packages on Debian 9 that I wanted, what I did is I just researched the best way, and I want to run everything. Now everything in Qubes wants to run on Fedora by default. I'm going to go ahead and just show you how to change those to like Fedora or change those to Debian because I'm more comfortable in the Debian branch, and being as that I built my Qubes initially for a production machine, I don't want to be learning Fedora in the middle of doing actual production work for somebody. I want to be on a system that I'm competent on already. And so I just kept, converted everything to the Debian branch. And I'll show you how to go ahead and do that. If you want to keep on Fedora, then that's fine. This here will not take too long, just a few minutes. In the meantime, though, while that's going, and what we'll do here is we'll show you how to find stuff. What I found on the Qubes website is this is one of the clearest websites for if you need to know how to do something. The documentation over here is excellent. There's some basic setups. I didn't see any super tutorial setups like what I'm doing here. So hopefully these will complement the documentation. But this documentation is quite clear. I will say that a lot of their steps is doing a whole lot of things through the command line interface. And if you're newer to Linux, you may not be as comfortable with the command line. So you can do, there's some steps, some things I've not figured out how to do without the command line. But there's several things that you can do through the GUI where the documentation will still point you to the command line. And either way is great. I think learning both is fine. If you're going to be on Linux a lot, learning the command line is a good thing to do. But you also want to, you're faster in the user interface many times. I know I am. And I don't always have to go on because I don't carry with me all of the little details, especially since in here it's a customized package. It's QVM and whatever you're going to do, which works great, and it's awesome. They have all of the detailed instructions for pretty much any of the features you'd want to use. But there's many times you just want to do something quickly through the user interface, and I'll show you where those were as I found them. So in the documentation, we do have some basics. Here's security information, hardware configurations, installing and upgrading. There's some common tasks, copying and pasting between domains, moving between domains, copying files to and from your DOM0, which is your basic root account. And then there's the steps here. So if you want to upgrade to Fedora 24, there's a step here. If you want to upgrade to Debian 9, there's a step here. So these are all a lot of very useful information. We're going to walk through how to do most of these things. As far as your security guides, let's see, some information there, privacy guides, configurations. So you can see that there's a whole lot of information. And I've been researching these things as I've needed to use them. All right, so let's see, executing Qubes configuration. It looks like we're just kind of coming to the point where we're going to be coming back on over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop this, and then I'll bring it right back on as soon as we are done and ready to log in. So here it is done. We can now push the Finish Configuration button, and it's going to come back down here into your load up. And now it's asking me for my password. So now I enter the password, and it's going to start us up. It's going to ask us on the first time, use the default or use an empty panel. This is to get up the panel set up. So I'm going to go ahead and use the default configuration. Now your default configuration puts your panels at the top. I'm not a huge fan of the panel at the top. The other thing that I noted, and I'm trying to see if it's still doing it, on my first install, you'll see that the volume keeps on toggling on, toggling off, toggling on, toggling off. Kind of annoying. That seems to fix itself when you push a system update. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit the highlight the DOM0 over here. Let me go ahead and move my camera off of that there. So you can see here where I have the DOM0, and then up here, this guy here is the update. It's going to launch an updater, and it's going to start looking for any updates. it should find some updates, and the update is going to fix that volume toggling issue. It kind of drove me mad for a while, but once you get that updated, and it seemed to correct the problem. Now, as the system is up and running, you will see that it will check updates automatically, and you will see a little arrow on anything that needs an update to it. The other thing is, by default, it's only showing the current active domains. Now, I'm not a huge fan of having just the active domains. I'm going to go ahead and cover that right up at that. Yeah, that's driving me mad. Okay. So what you do is this last button over here, which looks like a guy running half green, half gray, that there will actually toggle on and off the various it'll show and hide the active and non-active domains. So as soon as I'm able to, I'm going to click on that. I can't do it because the update's running right now. You'll see that it's now downloading the update. So you're going to want to go through and update everything. Now, one of the things that makes this a little bit different of a system is it works with a few default templates. So there's a Fedora 23 and a Debian 8 template. So you're going to want to push the updates on both of those as you are creating your initial setup. And then we'll actually get into how you can change your individual settings. One of the things you'll notice, XFCE does not generally have your Windows Meta key as a startup for your menu over here. So while this is updating, I should be able to add that to the menu if I can. That's something that most people find handy. And I believe you got to go to, I think it's keyboard, but let me scan through the list real quick. It might be on keyboard. Let's see, application shortcuts. So what we're going to do here, is pick up the kitty that came to say hi.
Hi everybody, switch to Qubes, it rocks.
All right, so Kitty wants to come up and hang out with us. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, and the pop-up configuration menu is what it is, which is mapped to Alt and F1. So you'll notice Alt and F1 does that. So to add the Windows Meta key, I'm going to click the Edit button. I'm going to copy the command that is right here. So copy that, push OK. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to hit Add. I'm going to paste the same command. I'm going to push OK there. Oh, apologize, I got mixed up. All right. Now we want to press the key. So you'll see it says Super L. Hit Enter there. You'll see that now we have another pop-up with the Super L. Now we can close that. Now our Windows Meta key will open our program. Now it's not like Cinnamon and several other menus. You can toggle it on and toggle it off. It doesn't do that. But what it will do is it will at least open it up for you. So over here, you're seeing that we have a whole lot of packages to update. Let me go ahead and get the whole thing there in view for you. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to hit the Select All button down here. Hit the Apply, and then this is going to go ahead and do all of our downloads. So this here might take a few minutes. So what we're going to do, let's see, maybe not. Resolving, downloading, checking, running tests. Okay, I guess it's updating quite a bit faster than I was thinking. The other thing, of course, XFCE, depending on where you want your panel, you can keep the panel up there at the top if you want. I moved mine down the bottom. Let me just show you how you can move the panel in case that's something you want to do. What we're going to do is hit the panel preferences down here. We can do all this while the thing's updating. So I can do the horizontal, I can do a vertical there, I can do a desk bar, which the desk bar is going to switch it over like this. If I unlock the panel, then let's see if I can remember how to move it. Now that's the spacer. Sometimes moving it, you can just kind of grab it. You can grab it and kind of move it right in the middle of your workspace too. You can grab it and move it to the bottom. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and keep it on the top because it's a little bit different than what I usually do. And I think one of the things that I oftentimes am guilty of is setting up every single computer the exact same way. And that may or may not be the best option for everybody. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep it, you know, as it is out of the box default, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable for me to have the panel up there. But, you know, that's okay. Maybe I just need to get used to stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and keep the panel up there. Now on the panel, if you happen to close the domain manager, you can always get your domain manager back on the panel up here, this little Q guy up here. Click on this, and that will bring your domain manager back, and hopefully I should be able to click this now. So yeah, I can go ahead and click this now. So now you'll see that it'll toggle all my machines on and all my machines off. Now you see right there next to Fedora, this little green arrow. That means that there's an update available. So if I go ahead and highlight this machine and push this button here, it's actually going to start the updater for this one also. I can look at my system memory. It looks like right now only about 6 gigs of RAM is being used. So I'm just going to go ahead and push the update on that too. I don't think I'm going to run into any issues. So it says it has to be running for it to be updated. So yes, I want to start it. You'll see that you'll get a yellow button there. We got some pop-up notifications at the top indicating it's turning on. The yellow is going to turn green as soon as that's on, and then it's going to go ahead and launch the updater. So now it's doing its thing. So I got the main domain is doing its updates. Fedora is doing its updates. Not sure if Debian is needing updates right now or not. It may not know because none of the default applications actually use Debian. So once one of these guys is done, then we're going to go ahead and start working on that. It looks like that's going to be the domain one. So now it's cleaning things up. Kitty, kitty, rise. Kitty, kitty, rise. Rise. Alright. Kitty's being fun. Alright. Cleanup step. Okay, looks like it's waiting. So 423 megabytes is what Fedora wants to download right now. So we're going to go ahead and push the download on that. So while that's going, let's go ahead and click the Q there, get our domain manager back. Now suppose that... like in my case, I like using Debian. So you can see here that the numbers over here, like under the template, you can see down and where under personal it says Fedora 23. That means that this is pulling from the template. So the templates here are Debian 8, Fedora 23. Unix is the anonymizer system. And so if I want this based on Debian rather than Fedora, then I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to click on the VM settings up at the top. I can also get to that in the by right-clicking. Now, inside of here is a lot of different settings. So we can automatically start this on boot. So if you always want one particular domain to start up on boot, go ahead and click this button, and that'll always make sure it's started up and ready to go. You can change the coloration, so you can see that my personal is yellow. What this coloration is going to do is all of the windows and all of the applications inside of that domain are going to actually be colored with that. So all of those themes have been edited to have that color. So you can pick the color of your preference. Okay, you can also give it a name. So suppose maybe you're using this as a family system. You can say, you know, this is my domain here, and then somebody else might have their own domain. Of course, anybody with access to the computer can access anybody else's domain. But this is handy if each of you have your own different internet accounts you want to stay logged into, but one person has a Google account for one thing, another person has a Google account for something else. Two different family members, you can create a domain for each person, and then each person can perpetually remain logged into their own domain. And so that's the way you can do that. If you pull down the template here, this will change the template. So now it will be pulling from Debian 8 rather than from Fedora 23. And then your firewall, you want to just kind of keep that right there at the firewall. All right. Now for your disk storage, right now it defaults to give everything 2 gigabytes of disk storage. If you need more disk storage than that, you can just bump that up just by clicking on the arrow. I'm not going to bother changing that at this point in time. I don't imagine I'll need more than that right now, but you can go ahead and do that. You'll see that some items here cannot be changed while the machine is running. Our machine is not running, so that's perfectly okay. Under Advanced, we can set our memories. So I always like bumping these up to 1 gigabyte, especially since I'm running this on either this computer with 32 gigs or my other computer with 8 gigs. And I find that starting it out on 1000 boots the machine up a little bit quicker. And then you can set the maximum amount of memory that it's going to use. If you're using a lot of system heavy applications, like if I wanted to build a domain specifically to run Blender and other high memory usage things, I might want to give these guys more memory. If I'm doing just simple tasks, I might keep the memory a little bit less. You can set your kernels over here. And then you can set your network over here. So the display network, let's see, same as VM, so the net VM. Let's see, all right. Firewall rules, by default, it's going to allow all network access except, or you can deny all network access except, so you can set up custom firewall rules for each domain. Now your devices is something that you want to you kind of want to get to know your computer. These are all a variety of different devices. Kitty wants this. This is a Linux cat. He's going for my flash drive. All right, you going for my flash drive? Oh yeah, he's going for my flash drive. No, you can't have my flash drive, Kitty. Kitty can't have my flash drive. No. All right. So, what these are is all of the various devices listed inside the computer. So if one of these guys is turned over here, it is going to disable it on somewhere else. So if I happen to be running a USB version of this operating system and I actually switch that USB controller over and then start the machine, the entire system will come crashing down because the USB controller will stop being used for the main domain system and will transfer its use over to the one domain it's being used. So you'd want to get familiar with your computers, especially like on a hard drive. You're probably not going to move around at all with your system. But if you are building something that's portable, like this one is, I can jump this between the different computers. But when you do it, you usually have to start it up, make a couple configuration changes because the networks are not the same. And so when I move it over onto the laptop here that I'm doing my recording on, I actually have to come into here on my system net, this guy up here on the system net, and I actually have to set the controller to find the Wi-Fi card, and then I have to restart the machine. And then it will be like, great, awesome. Then when I switch back over here, I have to drop that guy off. Sometimes I have to add the controller, the Ethernet controller over here, or else it may not access the internet. So if it's not accessing the internet, but the internet seems to be working based upon seeing a connection up here, then what you want to see there is you want to be able to check that, just check that it's a proper controller is being used. And then there's applications. So this controls your menu. So we are under the personal one right now. It will remain personal until I save it. So you'll see that it has Files, Firefox, and Terminal. So that corresponds to the programs over here. So what we're going to do is, if I want to add other things, so in my case, I might want a disk utility. So I'm going to click on disks and add that to my menu. Character map, add that to my menu. And then system monitor. So anything I put over here will automatically be added to the menu. And then here is services. In this case, memory writer. Push OK. It's going to make some changes to the machine. Remember, we changed the basic name. We added some application menus, etc. We changed based on what it's from. So now it has my name on it, so I know it's my domain. My color I didn't change. It's now based on Debian 8 rather than Fedora 23. And if I come up to the menu up here, then, it took away all my things. That's very possibly because I need to go back once I had changed the menu. Yep, that's what happens. I needed to. Okay, here's what happened. The step I needed to do is it was running all of the applications based on Fedora, not based on Debian. I totally forgot about that. I apologize. So now we'll go ahead and add settings. So you'll actually see that there's different applications in here now on Fedora. Or excuse me, on Debian. There's more applications, different applications on Debian than there were on Fedora. So there you go. So there's now some programs there. All right, let's see. So Fedora's still going. This guy is fine. Let's go ahead and apply that. Okay. Close that guy. So Fedora is still going. Now, the next thing to spot is you'll see that you'll see these icons here. That is because all of these machines are based on the Fedora 21 template, which is now recorded as different. So the only way for these guys will either be gray like they are, or they will be green. They will be green if the machine is turned on and it is not up to date. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, and you'll see that that should switch to green. Maybe it only switches to green if I changed it while the thing's running. But we'll see what happens here. Okay. All right, so yeah, if this guy is already on before I started the update process, then your arrows here would be green. Or your arrows are green after I shut this down. Regardless, what's going on here is these will not update themselves until the Fedora machine is shut down and this machine will shut down. So it indicates that the copy of the machine that is running is not the exact copy of the machine that is available. And I'm going to double check something here. I'm going to see if my internet is actually working on this or not. So I'm going to go down and load up the internet on work, and I'm going to see if it can actually access the internet. Okay. So there we got Firefox. Does look like it's actually working. Okay, so we do have internet here. So what we're going to do here is, while this is still updating, is I'm going to show you the way these guys work differently. So suppose that this, of course, I can't close all my tabs, duh. Okay. So suppose that this is a work computer here, and I want to have some very specific applications set on it. So I can come over here, and maybe let's say I have to log into a Google account over here, and this is an application that I actually have this exact setup done. On the work, my main USB port that I use this on, my work computer has all of the websites I need to work on, all of the stuff, all of the FileZilla applications, everything is already in there. But if I boot up any other template, none of that stuff's in there, which is great because it means I can stay signed into Google over there, and I don't really care because we have to use Google services for that particular project. I hate having Google services enabled. I don't even like using their services logged into Google on my other personal computers, which means that this is an ideal system for me to stay logged into Google, do the work they need me to do over there, but it doesn't interfere, or log, or track, or connect me to anything else that's going on. So what I'm going to do here is I have Google. I'm going to hold Control Push D, and I've always been a fan of using the toolbar. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and use the toolbar. Of course, I need to activate the toolbar by coming down to, well, not preferences. I need to come down to customize. And over here under your toolbars, I'm going to turn on the bookmarks toolbar. Okay, exit the customizer. And then, of course, I'm just going to delete the other things that I don't need. Okay, so then now let's say I want to go to my website at switchedtolinux.com. Switchedtolinux.omc is not .com. Switchedtolinux.com. Go ahead and go over there, and then okay, so we'll go ahead and hit the D there, and I'm just going to get rid of that part there. So it goes into the toolbar again. So now I can just go ahead and create all the different websites that I want up here. So that'll all save. So I can just go ahead and close this machine down. So we're just going to shut down the virtual machine there. Say, yeah, verify the virtual machine is going to shut down. And now if I come into my personal one, open up my Firefox over here, it's going to boot this guy up. So the first time it loads up the machine, when the machine's first turning on, it will take a little bit more time. Gotta give it a minute there. Sometimes I find that once the machine turns on, if the application doesn't load, sometimes you just need to go into the menu and click on it again. For some reason, it seems as though the first time you click on anything in the menu, it turns on the machine. I'm not sure. It's still looking like Firefox is having a hard time wanting to load right now. Not sure why that is. I have not encountered that issue before. Actually, I think I did. Okay, it says it's already running. Okay. Missing or inaccessible. Okay. Okay, that's, yeah, I just need to be a little bit more patient with it. So now you'll see that Firefox is now, a completely different, it's all the startup on this side now. You'll see that even the initial startup screens are a little bit different. I did it again. I'm really bad at closing all of those things and forgetting they won't start all back up. So you'll see that the default startup page is a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and turn on your bookmarks toolbar, exit the customizer. And you'll see now that we even get a completely different set of startup guys. So I'm going to come over here. We're going to go ahead and open up Work. We'll open up Firefox over here and Work again, just to show you that they're different. And you'll see, of course, that the coloration here is wrapped around. And even the menus up here, let me slide that over so you can actually see it. The items over here will actually be indicated with their color. So the black is the Fedora, the yellow is the personal, this is the Qubes manager there. See if I can get 2 different domains all at once yelling at me that Firefox is still open. That'd be fun. Yeah, the system's running a little bit slower than I'm used to, and I'm guessing that it has to do with the hard drive. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's like it's already running. All right, so you'll see here that now the 2 Firefoxes are still completely different. So the work domain one still has the individual websites on that I wanted to use, and you'll see that the personal one is now set up a little bit different. So I can go ahead and create a workspace for maybe each person has their own workspace, maybe each project has a workspace. You can even create a separate workspace just for your banking. So this might be a better option than like what I'm doing is I'm using a separate USB drive with a install of Ubuntu just for my banking. This is another way you could easily do that without having multiple different operating systems all over. Is just use different Qubes. So these are other ways that you can do that. All right, so let's see, how's this guy going? Looks like it's getting there. Go ahead and boot up the manager. So here I can shut down a machine just by highlighting it and clicking on that. And we're going to also shut down the work machine. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just let this finish up, and I'm going to start the video up and just do a quick wrap up to the video once the Fedora is done updating. So we will be back in a little bit. Okay, so our Fedora is done updating. So now what we're going to do is you'll see that there's all these guys here. They will need Fedora to be shut down in order to restart or to get that signal to go away. So once that is shut down, you'll see that the guys down below are all clear now because they were not running. Now the top 2, the sysnet and the sys firewall, those guys there are going to need to be shut down and restarted in order for the upgrades to go away. So this is the case scenario where they turn green. So what we're going to do is just shut down, hit yes, and then we're going to shut down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to restart both of those. So the sysnet is the one that controls your main internet. The other thing I'm going to do here is, what I wanted to do is I want to add, I got to remember where it is. There is a way to add another column over here. There it is. I can do a CPU graph. Size is the one I want to add because what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap this up. This guy might need to... we might need the entire computer shut down for the sysnet to go online, so that's fine. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start the firewall back up as well. Now what we're going to do is the application packages that I wanted out of Debian 9 are Debian 9 contains Simple Screen Recorder by default, and it also contains GUCU View. So if I install Debian 9 on the system, then I should actually be able to come on and actually run a video, actual recording video, as long as I'm running from one of the boxes out of Debian 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through how to update the Debian from Debian 8 to Debian 9. And then I'm just going to go ahead and attach it to my personal one. And then in the next tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to go through half of the setup stage. Because like I said, I know this is going to take a long time to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and start it, and then we will pick up the next tutorial where we are going to wrap up the Debian 9 conversion, and then once we do that, then we're going to show you how to install extra software packages and pass a camera through USB so that we can start recording on the actual Qubes installation itself rather than with a camera pointed at the screen, which is working okay, but definitely not ideal. So what we're going to do, and if you follow the instructions, it's going to have you do everything through the terminal. And you need to keep in mind that when you're using Qubes, there's a couple different layers here, because the Debian 8 has a terminal, but so does your DOM 0. You need to know whether you need to do something through the terminal on the Debian or the terminal through the DOM 0. So I'm going to get rid of as much of the terminal as I can and use the GUI for each of the steps. You cannot do it entirely. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over here to the Debian 8. I'm going to right-click, and down here is the option that says Clone. And we need to create a name for the clone. So I'm going to clone it as Debian 9. Of course, my number lock's not working, so I went with Debian page up. All right. So go ahead and hit this, and this will be another step that takes a few minutes to do. And what it's doing is it's creating a new copy. So this will also take a moment. So the next thing that we're going to do, like stage 1 is going to be actually creating the copy, which we're doing now. And then we just have to run the basic package list, which you can grab the code for this on the main documentation website. So we could actually go spin up this Debian 9, grab the code, copy it, paste it into the terminal. You have to do this step to the terminal, best I know. I have not found a way to do this step without it. The other thing we want to do is we want to compact things, because this kind of works like a virtual drive space. So you'll see if you look at the Fedora 23, see how it's taking up a whole lot more memory? That's because we ran the package update. So it updated a whole lot of stuff. It took a whole lot more memory. It did all of its stuff. But the function that causes a drive to shrink back down in shape is disabled on the domains. It's another security thing they talk about elsewhere. So what you actually have to do is you actually have to come in and shrink those down. And the best I can tell, I think, I have not found a way to do that without going through the terminal. But you have to run a command called qvm trim template, and you have to do that in the main DOM 0 terminal. So we can do that as this guy is cloning the Debian 9. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the menu here. And when you click your menu, you'll see the terminal emulator that's up outside of everything else. Oh, it looks like my Debian 9 is cloned. Go ahead and hit the terminal emulator up here, and then this is going to give us a terminal for the DOM 0. So this is where you run all your VirtualBox stuff. So here is our terminal. You'll see it's your name at DOM 0. That's the one you want to run these commands in. So what we're going to run is qvm for Qubes Virtual Machine, and we're going to do -trim -template, and then the name of the template, which in this case is Fedora-23. Okay. We have to stop this guy first in order to do that. All right. And the reason is we cannot trim it while this guy is running. So we're going to have to shut this guy down. This is the one that did not want to shut down completely. Okay, I got to shut down. Let me shut this one down first. So you do have to make sure everything is shut down. So if you are doing anything on the network, don't shut these guys down if they're on the network, because that's going to pose you some challenges there. Again, that did not want to shut down for us the first time, so hopefully it shuts down this time. At least once the thing goes gray, we're going to try this again. Hey, look at that. It actually shut down this time. Go back over here, rerun that command. So what it's going to do here is it's going to shrink everything down, it's going to shrink it back down to size. So it's starting at about 7 gig there, and let's see what it looks like when it's done. This command does not take too long to run. Never seen it actually tell me that there's nothing in there. No such file or directory. That's interesting. I've never actually seen that. Interesting. We might actually have to restart the system because remember I did all the... Oh no, it worked actually. Curious. You'll see now the Fedora is it dropped half in size. So maybe that error showed up because I had not restarted the system since I pushed all the DOM0 updates when we first started it. All right, so now we have our Debian 9, so we're going to start the process here of updating this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn on the virtual machine, and if I can get the web browser working, I'm just going to go right to the Qubes documentation and copy and paste it. Had to restart the network before it starts the machine up. Go, network's now working again. And now I'm going to go down. You can come down into the menu and find your templates. We'll all have menus there as well. Let's see if I can add Firefox to this. I might be able to. Firefox, push OK. I had a chemistry professor that used to say that chemists are inherently lazy, so that's why I'm going through this effort of going into the Firefox, and by the time Firefox loads and I get to the Qubes documentation and grab everything, I'm sure I could have already manually typed the thing in, but we're going to go ahead and... it's looking like... This is an issue I had before where my Debian template did not want to connect to the network. At least not Firefox on there. Okay, never mind. We're not going to waste our time. We're just going to go into the terminal and just do this manually. Boot up the terminal. So this one has to be run in the Debian terminal. So we are going to do... Just going to double check my commands here. Okay, so sudo sed -i and then Jesse /stretch/g etc apt sources.list. Just verify, make sure I didn't do any goofy spelling stuff. And then we're going to repeat list.d/r3.list. All right, and now we are going to do our update and we are going to do our upgrade distribution. So sudo apt-get update, and then we're also going to run a sudo apt-get and dist upgrade -y. Again, we are doing this in the Debian terminal. Okay, so what's going to happen here is this is the part that usually takes me a long time. In fact, last time I ran this, after 2 hours, I left the computer on overnight, came back in the morning and had to push enter to yes, install. Okay. So you can see that it's doing its thing. So what we're going to do here is after we run this, we're going to run the auto remove command, and then we're going to run that shut the machine down and run the trim command. So here's what I'm going to do is let's see, 4%. Yeah, I think this is going to take too long to do tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up this tutorial right here. I think we have more than enough info. And then the next time I come on, we're going to pick up at the auto remove, the extra packages, and we're going to trim this one down in size. We're going to then install some software, and then hopefully we will end the next time's tutorial being able to actually record the screen on Qubes itself, so we can get into some more things over there. So with that, we're just going to end this tutorial, I think. And I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know. I'm still collecting the things that people have asked. People have asked about sharing graphics card, installing Windows. One of the things on Windows I found is that it appears as though Windows 8 and Windows 10 will not install on it. I did find an interesting article where people said you may be able to take a virtual machine running Windows and convert it into a machine on Qubes. We can test that. Because I do actually happen to have a working Windows virtual machine on an OpenSUSE drive around here somewhere. And as long as I can get that to work, we'll try it and see what happens. So those are the things that are on the list to try to look at if I can. And with that being said, let me know in the comments other things that you'd like to include as we keep on rolling out the Qubes tutorials. We'll probably be shooting to do one tutorial a week. So I think that the next step on this drive and this installation is probably going to be either late this week or early next week, or maybe over the next weekend. So with that being said, thanks for watching this tutorial on Qubes, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.